Reports coming out have said that the Chicago Bulls are very hesitant at moving any of their current veteran players. Also, we're going to look into the LaVine trade market and how that's updated over the past few days. I'm your host, Joey Mercer. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And before we get into it there today, I just want to say that about 85% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, make sure to go down below, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and every time we upload, you will be notified and be able to stay up to date with your Chicago Bulls and our takes here at Bulls Digest on that news. So without further ado, let's get into the first topic of today, and that is Bulls are stubborn as ever. So it's funny enough, in the last video we talked about how Jerry Krause was really disrespected and his widow was in tears because of what happened at the Ring of Honor ceremony at the Chicago Bulls game against the Golden State Warriors. A few former players and, well, current color analyst Stacey King came out and talked about it, but it really was interesting to see how the fans took to that, and now we're getting this news from Chicago's front office saying that they don't want to trade veterans to enter a rebuild. This report was from Jack Simone, and it's really interesting to see that because the big scrutiny over Jerry Krause when he was a member of the Chicago Bulls staff was that he wanted to trade away the team that just won 3 championships in a row from the years of 96 to 98 so that they wouldn't be in a forever rebuild, so to speak. So that's why he, kind of implement the whole point of Jordan was leaving, Rodman's leaving, trade Pippen, everything that happened around there. And now the Bulls ever since have been very hesitant to move any veterans in case something happens that they can build chemistry and win a championship or make a deep playoff push. This team just doesn't quite have that, though. We've given them a few chances now. I mean, it's been the last 3 or 4 years, and in LaVine's case, it's been longer than that, although LaVine before Vooch and DeRozan were there. Not a very good team. I can't put any blame on him for that. But it's the complete opposite of us not wanting to trade veterans now, when before we wanted to trade them at any means necessary. Next thing that we saw, following their ugly start to the season, the Chicago Bulls look set to enter a rebuild. Rumors indicated that the team was focused on trading Zach LaVine, but then he went down with an injury. However, rather than tumbling forward toward the bottom of the standings, the Bulls improved and they're now fully in the play-in tournament race. Despite the recent success, the Bulls seemingly still don't have the talent to compete with the top teams in the East, and speculation has led to the belief that they could still sell at the deadline. But a recent report might indicate otherwise. And yeah, I mean, it's very true. LaVine went down with an injury. We had a very good time without him in the lineup when it comes to our win-loss record. And Kobe White was able to break out and solidify himself as a top player on this team. But since LaVine's been back, yes, we're winning. We lost to the Golden State Warriors. We won against the Spurs last night, but I'm a little bit hesitant to believe that it's been the best situation since LaVine's been back in the lineup. We had 2 games that went to overtime that should have been done in regulation, as hero ball kind of became a thing in the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter in both of those games. Yes, we blew out the Hornets in the first game when LaVine was back in limited playing time. Against the Spurs, I believe we should have played a lot better than we did last night. Trey Jones had himself an absolute game for the Spurs, and Wemby wasn't even playing. We need to be better than that. And then when we look at the game before that, we lost to the Warriors. We're up 13.5 and blew a lead. I mean, it hasn't been exactly smooth sailing since LaVine's been back in the lineup, which is not what you want to see from a star player on your team. Next thing we saw on this was, according to longtime NBA insider Mark Stein and his newsletter, The Stein Line, the Bulls have no interest in trading their veterans in favor of entering a rebuild. The Bulls continue to make former All-Star swingman Zach LaVine available on the trade market, but are not, league sources say, looking to ship out multiple veterans and enter into a full-fledged rebuild, Stein wrote. So that's the part that kind of makes it similar to the Jerry Krause situation, is they don't want to rebuild. They don't want to be in a forever rebuild, is what Krause said, and now they don't want to rebuild at all, as they're really not wanting to change what's going on within the organization. We've seen this over the past 10 years or so, and it comes to the point where they're just having players that are too old, leaving free agency, you're not getting any value, you have to trade them, make trades. It doesn't make any sense the way that they're doing things right now. It needs to be on the fly. We need to make some changes when they need to happen. You can't just sit on players and be like, oh, well, the value that we think he's valued at is not what's on the market at all. So let's just hold on to him, wait for him to get worse, and take pennies on the dollar. That's not the way that it should be, but it is the way that it has happened with the Bulls organization over the past several years, unfortunately. Next thing we saw was Bulls Wire has previously pondered the idea of trading LaVine in favor of adding depth to a roster that found success without him on the court, even composing a mock trade that would see Kevin Huerter and Andrew Wiggins join Chicago. Flipping LaVine and his massive contract would likely help the Bulls moving forward, but rather than resetting the roster, looking to add more talent isn't the worst idea. This team is capable of making the play-in and potentially winning a game, and putting quality players around Kobe White and Patrick Williams could help their development moving forward. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely correct. I would personally like to trade Zach LaVine. I'm not saying that I'd like to get basically nothing and just dump his salary, but if we can get anybody that can fit this rotation and play some serious minutes, I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, LaVine not in the lineup at all, no player coming in for him, and the team looked great. And now that he's back, it's kind of, and our schedule has been pretty kind to us since he's been back at that. But I'm just not so sold on the fact that LaVine's going to help this team win come playoff time. We have a sample of it this season with him in and without him in, and it seems that the team's a lot better without him, which, once again, is not the greatest thing, which might change his trade value a little bit. Which leads us to the next topic of today, which is LaVine market is smaller than we think. So yeah, I mean, we went to another article when we looked at this, and I was like, what is LaVine's trade market? Is there anything out there kind of reporting on this besides me just giving my own take? And I actually stumbled across an article that said this, unfortunately. It said, Zach LaVine trade market so rough, Bulls may have to dump. And I know that the Bulls aren't going to try and go ahead and do something like that. I mean, they don't want to take pennies on the dollar. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But it just goes to see that they aren't going to be doing this. I can guarantee you that. They are not a team that likes to just give up players for nothing. They're going to try to get what they think is a fair value, and what that is can mean different to all of us. First thing we saw in this article was the Chicago Bulls have been putting together a solid season since their rough start to the year. They've propelled themselves back into the play-in tournament race, leaving teams like the Toronto Raptors and Atlanta Hawks in the dust. That said, the trade deadline should be an interesting checkpoint in their season. Trade rumors have followed the Bulls all year, and Zach LaVine's name has been the most popular among their regulars. He's been linked to a multitude of teams over the course of the past few months, and it's looking more and more like the Bulls could choose to move on from him. And it's true. I mean, the amount of teams is nearly endless. There's lots of videos that we've uploaded if you'd like to check those out, explaining each team and what we think the value should be, how LaVine's playing, where we think the value is, and what teams we think are most likely to end up with him. Next thing we saw in this was, however, according to Dan Woik of the LA Times, the trade market for LaVine is so rough that the Bulls may have to add value to the deal just to get off his massive contract. Zach LaVine, long rumored to be on the trade market, isn't usually a name that comes up when talking to people about the Lakers' interest because of his contract and injury history, Woik wrote. The trade market for him around the league, sources say, is so rough that the thought is Chicago should have to add stuff in a LaVine trade to get off the contract. And that is absolutely not what you want to hear about your quote-unquote star player. And this isn't what you want to hear from a former two-time All-Star if we're going to bring in the resume there. This is a bad situation for the Bulls. They need to make a move on LaVine, and I feel like it's almost been too late as they were offered so much in the offseason and turned all of it down. And the trade deadline is just around the corner, and that January 15th, where more players become available, is just tomorrow. So we're going to be looking at more of that tomorrow, I guarantee you, as some more players become available, and maybe a trade will happen sooner rather than later. The last thing we saw in this article was, Obviously, Woj covers the Los Angeles market, so there's a chance his reporting is coming from sources within the Los Angeles Lakers organization who would benefit from this type of angle, as they have reportedly shown an interest in LaVine. That said, LaVine's contract is huge. He still has 3 years left on his deal after the season, and will make roughly $43 million, $46 million, and $49 million, respectively, with a player option in the final year. And that's a good way to end that article as we talked about it. And it is nice to talk about that it is from the LA Times. I mean, coming from Los Angeles people when they come out with articles on other players, you have to take it with a grain of salt because they definitely are looking out for their hometown team. That being the Lakers in this situation and not the Clippers. But when it comes to the Lakers, I mean, they are known as a historic franchise, been around forever. It's them and the Celtics when you think of championships. And they try to swing anything they can in order to acquire these assets, and that's what they're trying to do here with Zach LaVine. Other markets have not reported the same thing with Zach LaVine. We've heard some touching on the contract, the defense, whatever it may be, and we've talked about those issues here on Bulls Digest. But for the fact to be the value of them having to dump LaVine, that's not accurate, and that's why I wanted to talk about that second part here today. So don't be too worried, Bulls fans. There's still hope just around the corner, and we'll wait and see what will happen tomorrow on Monday. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video there today, and if you did, make sure to go down below, hit the like button, comment on the video. I'd like to hear from all of you here at Bulls Digest, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one, so make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and you'll be notified the next time we upload. This has been your host, Joey Mercer, signing off.